welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we are looking at the best twists in horror. From your I See Dead Peoples to your It Was a Boy All Along. That one applies to several different films.
Yeah.
It Was a Boy All Along, whether it was a real boy, whether it was a fake boy,
or
whether it was someone pretending to be a girl, but actually a boy all along. All of these twists that kind of make, I think at some points in time when horror has dipped, an occasional twist has been a film that's like jumped right up. Like films have jumped more into the public appeal because they've been like, oh my god, you have to see this just because of that twist that happened in the film. Sometimes it's more just a standard kind of twist, but you think's really effective. So me and Robbie have come together and we've compiled our top 3 each of our kind of a horror choices. Maybe not going with the most obvious ones.
Yeah.
Not that they wouldn't make it into our top list. I think we've just got a bit more personalised. Like, so we'd like to be a little bit different, but we'll have some honourable mentions later on.
Because there are, like you said, there were those classic twists. Like, I mean, like you said, I See Dead People. I'm sure you don't have Sixth Sense on our list, and there's probably nobody alive on the planet who doesn't know the twist of Sixth Sense because it was so iconic. So this should be a fun little episode.
I would say like obviously
Spoilers.
spoiler warnings.
Yeah, obviously spoiler warnings.
I guess we'll mention the name of the film if you're really like, oh my god, I've avoided that for so long, I don't want you to mention it.
Then skip
you've
forward.
You've got a chance to pause for a moment and move ahead a little bit, and hopefully you'll miss it. But,
hopefully. But as always, if this is your first time listening or if you are a long time listener, please remember to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a lovely review. It really does help the show grow. Like I said on our last episode, Spotify has now overtaken Apple Podcasts for our most reviewed platform. So it's easy to do. Like, you can just go on there and then it's very easy to find out how to do it. It's usually at the top on Spotify, at the bottom on Apple Podcast. And if you write a review, we will give you a shout out on the next episode. Always got to try and incentivise you, man. I'm a businessman. I'm a wheeler dealer.
We'll give you that incentive. We'll make you want to buy.
So I've gone for a classic, iconic one that most people probably know. I've gone for one which I didn't see when I watched the film and I thought really elevated this film. And then I've gone for one which is real weird, kind of out there. I think people probably don't think much of the film, but I really liked it and loved it, and it was a weird one. What about you?
I think I've gone with definitely ones that personally hit me in a certain way. Like, I remember it being properly stands out in my mind, kind of personal. I feel like mine's got quite a kind of more of a supernatural maybe kind of theme to it.
Okay,
kind of thing.
Supernatural.
I think I've gone less for maybe the twist of the killer was this person or things like that, because obviously with most people they're probably thinking, well, every horror film has maybe some kind of twist. Every good film in some way has a twist at some point. But I feel like there's twist and then there's kind of like genre defining twists, or there's things like that, or things that just make an impact to you that maybe you just really didn't see it coming, or you just really, or just the general public, or like you might have noticed it, you might have got it beforehand, but still were like, damn, that's good. Like, that's a clever kind of twist on this film or on this genre or things like that. So I feel like mine is oddly enough gone into the supernatural, even though I'm not the hugest supernatural fan, but I guess that's why some of these actually made me be like, oh, actually I liked that film. When I don't always like them that much.
Well, kick us off then, Epo. Let's hear number one.
Number one on my list. So the first one that I am going to go with was one I watched when I was a lot younger, and I've mentioned this. I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, part of it. And I think it's because we were talking about like when we were younger and films we'd wanted to see, and I said about the fact that I really wanted to go and see the film Reign of Fire.
Okay.
The Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale,
dragons taking over.
So we're literally like we were
The coolest film
were
ever
like,
when
yeah,
we were 10.
we were like, I think that was when we had like that was the 12A, like
Yeah.
was literally introduced around that film.
Yeah, it was.
So it was like Austin Powers, Goldmember, Rain of Fire. Like there were several films that released at the same time.
And Spider-Man, I remember.
Yeah, so they were all got this 12A release, which was like a kind of a big thing at our age because it was we're not 12 yet, but we can go and see this film now that we wouldn't have got to see only like a couple of months ago. We wouldn't have been allowed to see this because it would have just been 12, and just like 15 or 18, you just weren't allowed if you couldn't, which was. You understand why they got rid of it in a way, because there's almost no way to prove that you're not a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And at that age, people are vastly different. You've got kids in like secondary school who look like they're fucking 20 years old.
Yeah,
randomly. And then you've got kids who still look like they're 8.
Yeah.
And like they could be of any age, and so it was quite unfair. So yeah, as long as you had an adult, you could go and see this film. So we were all in this big group. We were all like, "Oh man, look at that trailer! It looks amazing. That looks like the best film ever. It's Dragons in London, destroy." Like, you know what I mean? It's Christian Bale, and I don't think I even knew who Matthew McConaughey was. Like, I don't think I even recognise who, because obviously that was when he'd kind of disappeared a bit for a while, and then he came back with this weirdly odd, like, I'm going to go for a full-on action role after playing like a kind of like a hippie kind of hipster guy for most of his career so far. We were all going to go and see it, and then basically something got in our way. The adults couldn't go and see it anymore. They were like, "We can't do that." We were like, "Oh, so disappointed. We're not going to get to see Rain of Fire," which by the way is just an okay film.
I don't think I ever watched it. You know,
it's enjoyable enough, but the structure of the film is not great at all. But still, it's Dragons in London, so you can't completely be like, "That's terrible," because it's that. But it's just weird to see like Christian Bale, who's oftentimes quite serious, like in a lot of his things. I think that was pre-Batman.
Yeah.
So that was Christian Bale, like still on the rise, kind of thing. But yeah, so instead we ended up. Our compromise that we'd get to rent a film, and we rented The Others.
Oh, absolute classic. I was thinking of putting this on my list, man.
Yeah. So and no one really had a cue. So we were all in a big group. And, I mean, I can't say the first time I watched this film that we were actually fully paying attention. So I don't think I would have caught on to the twist that comes. Obviously, a family with Nicole Kidman in the main role, with a great performance from Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
And obviously they're in this kind of old Victorian era, and they're in this house. And they start to notice a lot of strange things that are going on around them. She starts to have creepy things like with their daughter, which because of Scary Movie, I think Scary Movie parodied this film where it had Michael Jackson hiding underneath in the same scene. So I can't now see that scene without seeing the parody version, which is what Scary Movie did to so many horror films by kind of ruining them in a lot of ways. But anyway, it's a slow pace. Like I know a lot of people who would probably switch off with this film because it is quite slow paced. It wasn't exactly the perfect film for a group of friends who were trying to like chill out and like watch something. So
I wanted to watch Rain of Fire.
Yeah, they wanted to watch something full on action, and we pretty much. I think this is probably the furthest away from that film as you could go.
Yeah.
Because that one was just like balls to the wall action, and this one's like a slow Victorian piece, that really does like it is a real tension, suspenseful film as the house continues. The odd groundskeeper, the landlady, all of these people that are just. They're strange and they're out of place, and the mother is constantly kind of questioning them and wondering why they're imposing and why are they trying so hard to kind of impose with the children. And oftentimes she feels as if these new people are trying to take the children away from her.
Yeah,
she doesn't really understand why, and I don't think they completely understand why. And for the whole film, you're just like, so there is some odd supernatural kind of in this house. There was something strange going on here. And that's the thing. I can't specifically... There are loads of great scenes, like I said, like that the little girl where she sat in the room with draped over with almost looks like an old wedding dress.
Yeah, it's like quite bridal, isn't it?
Yeah, and she's making those sounds. And And it's not that these are completely revolutionary things, and I'd say that these are things that have actually been used a lot since. And I feel like this is a quite forgotten about film though, because it's not like a full on horror, but it is a suspenseful. It's a very suspenseful film.
Yeah,
like it is like it keeps you on your toes purely because of that. So the first time I watched it, as I said, I don't think we were fully paying full attention at times because it was quite slow side. So we didn't catch the twist, but it definitely was enough that when the proper scenes of frightening scenes came on, when there was the slamming doors across several rooms of the house and the screaming or the children just acting paranormal kind of thing, I know that people stopped and were like, shit, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It stopped like a group of teenagers kind of talking to each other kind of, and then suddenly went, oh shit, what the fuck is happening?
We got loads of really weird, creepy scenes in it. I remember renting this with my family and watching it. And there were a couple of films that I remember watching. Jeepers Creepers was one of them. And this was another one we rented on VHS. And yeah, there were some scenes that were just so tense, like towards the end when... because it is like these weird grounds. There's like a weird groundskeeper, a weird nanny who turns
kind of
up.
nanny cook kind of
Cook,
thing.
yeah. And when they're slowly walking towards the house, towards the very end, I remember being terrified. Man.
Oh yeah, it's a beautifully shot film as well.
Yeah.
The use of a kind of misty kind of grounds and stuff like that. The fact that when there's one part when she thinks that the child's really ill, so she tries to leave go out of the grounds to find Sernkin. Things keep stopping her, and she can't understand why the creepy groundsman is blocking her way or stopping her way.
Yeah.
In context afterwards, just like something like The Sixth Sense, it's suddenly oh shit, that all makes sense now.
Yeah.
What was going on? But I really think while you're watching it, because it's this mother protecting, and because I think a lot of this again, I think Nicole Kidman's performance is a huge part of why a lot of people didn't get it, is because she does so well that she is. You're so focused on her character and this kind of unusual, and you think, oh, these people are so strange. Why don't they leave her alone? And why she needs to kind of get the kids out of here, and why can't she? And there's this unresolved constant in her head that she's something she's forgetting. So to get to the twist of the film is basically that the reason that they're all trying to keep them away from Mummy is because Mummy is the one that had a mental breakdown, and Mummy's the one that killed the children and killed herself. Around the time of, I think it's related to around the time of the war that Daddy doesn't come back.
It's the Second World War.
Yeah. And they are completely, and she is so distraught and in this kind of mental breakdown that she suffocates the children with pillows. And she does. I was mixing up. I've got another one that's a little bit close, so I'm mixing a little bit up in my head with another similar film that was on my list. But and it's a fucking haunting kind of part of the film when she realises that the new people and that they are the others.
They're the ghosts.
Yeah, the others is them. And the people that are coming through are actually actual people that are coming to view the house or live in the house. And for all this time. So these people that keep disturbing them is actually the people living in the house, the actual living people, and they are the ghosts. And it just was. It literally, I think everyone was draws dropped shit. I did not see that coming at all. It's just not signposted enough because you just think of it as a standard supernatural kind of, there's a ghost in the house, the family's protecting them, they've been done before. But I'm not sure I'd ever seen it done as masterfully done as it did with this one. And as I said, it's been copied several times since in this way. But it definitely is one of the ones that are just shit, that worked so well. And then the whole breakdown and just the whole scene with Nicole Kidman's performance of when she realises everything in front of her, and it's the fact that no one quite remembers, even the groundkeepers, they know why to protect and they remember more than she does, but even all of them don't quite remember every part of it. And she's just blocked it out completely what she did. So as this person, but it is just one of those that is completely haunting. And obviously it's around that time, like I said, from the late 90s to the early 2000s, that was pretty much our like rent film era. When like every week you were like, oh my god, we're going to rent a new film, or we're going to rent a couple of films, and we're going to watch them on repeat like all weekend.
Yeah, that's what you would do.
So I definitely did after that. I'm sure I went back and watched it again, because that's what you do with a video. If you had it, like, I've only got it for like 48 hours. I'm going to watch this film into the ground, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that is my first choice.
It's such an iconic one. I think I'm going to save my iconic one for the end. So what I'm going to start off with the weird one, because it's very it's a bit out there, and it's not exactly the kind of film that you would maybe expect to see on one of these lists because of kind of how weird it is, and that is the Midnight Meat Train. Have you seen it?
The one with
Bradley Cooper and Vinnie Jones.
No, I haven't seen this. I have wanted to watch it a few times. I've just never committed to it. I think Vinnie Jones was part of the reason. Like, it's probably not going to be that great because it's Vinnie Jones. But I have heard that he's actually quite good at it.
Well, I'm going to spoil the film for you.
Yeah, well, go ahead. I think I do actually already. I have heard the twist before. So it's okay.
Well, it's quite a strange film, because I think it's kind of like late 2000s. It's maybe before Bradley Cooper kind of blew up with The Hangover.
Definitely, yeah.
It's Vinnie Jones, and it's one of those films where, like, what was it that kind of launched Vinnie Jones? What was it? He wasn't Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah, after his football career.
After his football career, and he was doing films like that where he was like gangster hard man, you know.
I mean, I'd almost say the Midnight Meat Train is literally almost, whereas this is like more of the beginning of Bradley Cooper starting to get more roles.
Yeah.
This is more the end of Vinnie Jones starting to get roles. This is around the like X-Men, what is it, The Last Stand? When he played Juggernaut. Like they're some of the last things I properly saw Vinnie Jones in as an actor.
Yeah, probably, man.
As a film, anyway.
Yeah. But it's a weird film because I didn't think I'd put it on it. It plays out kind of like a standard slasher film, you know. Bradley Cooper he's a photographer, and he wants to get paid for his art and his pictures, but he goes and he tries to take some that he's sold in, and or that he's taken to try and sell them, and he's told that basically like your work's like too boring. You need to get like exciting stuff. So he follows this, like, it's really weird. He ends up following this woman, like, around New York late at night. And he catches her, like, almost about to be, like, sexually assaulted. It's pretty weird. And then the next day, he finds out that she's missing. And he was, like, one of the last people to see her. She sees is him get on this train. So he starts kind of looking into more people disappearing, taking these midnight trains. And he comes to the conclusion that Vinnie Jones is like the one who's taking them as a character. It's not actually him, and he's just this weird guy in a suit who's like quite silent. And it plays out like a standard film, you know. He goes to the police and tries to tell them. He starts to get more obsessive, like following him, and it kind of plays out like you'd expect until towards the very end, when it's a brutal film as well. There's some really good kind of brutal kills in there. Towards the very end of the film, when his girlfriend breaks into Vinnie Jones's apartment, finds like all of these train timetables and logs for like 100 years or something like that.
Yeah,
they end up basically getting on the Midnight Meat Train. And there's probably about 20, 30 bodies hung up, like naked and stripped on this train. So it's really kind of visually quite disturbing and strange and just quite off. And then when they get to this last station, so this random conductor's there, and he's like, we need you to step away from the meat. They step away, and they've gone into like this underground chamber beneath New York City that's filled with like bones and like skeletons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then these like reptilian creatures come onto the train, start eating these bodies, and then you find out that this has basically been like a thing that's been going on where these reptilian creatures have lived under New York for like hundreds of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know the twist of this film.
Yeah.
I thought it was that Bradley Cooper follows like the guy you think it's Vinnie Jones, and he's almost created the Vinnie Jones character, and it basically like Fight Club but for a horror. I thought that was it. I thought that Bradley Cooper was actually the one because he keeps following it. He's actually been the killer this whole time.
No.
Yeah.
This is
way
really weird. And it comes out of nowhere because like you see this stuff in his apartment saying it's gone on for like 100 years.
Yeah.
But you don't really kind of clock onto it. It's only when they get there, it's this really weird underground cavern. The conductor says this line, and then you don't really properly see the creatures. You kind of see like glimpses of them, shadows, all of that kind of stuff. They gobble the meat up. And then, and then, Bradley Cooper ends up killing Vinnie Jones. You're like, okay, cool, he's safe. And then the conductor ends up ripping out Bradley Cooper's tongue, kills Bradley Cooper's girlfriend, and is like, you're the butcher now. You have to go and kill all these people. And then we find out that the police chief gives him the timetable. We see Bradley Cooper in the suit and with all of like the murder stuff. And it's one of those kind of twists that I love because it's based on a Clive Barker story. So you know that it's going to be kind of weird. And it's going to be kind of slightly like cosmic horror-ish.
Yeah.
But it plays out for, I don't know, let's say the film's like 90 minutes long. For like 115 minutes, 120 minutes, it plays out just like a generic
standard
fun
slasher
film. It's quite bloody, it's cool. And then the last 15 minutes, it's like, there's like reptilians underground who run the city, and they have to, and we've made like a deal with them, and that's what these sacrifices are. That's
so it's like a play on the old myth of the alligators that live under New York, kind of thing, isn't it? They all say that there are alligators or reptilian creatures that live under the sewers in New York, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, and it just comes out of nowhere, and it's kind of one of those bittersweet ones, you know, similar to. In a strange way, similar to the end of The Others, where they've driven the new people out of the house, and then you see more people turn up, and it's like now they know the ghost. They've got to drive the people out of the house and try and stay there, and it's that thing of like this is the cycle continuing.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't end.
Yeah,
like Bradley Cooper could have lived his life. If he just stayed ignorant, if he didn't do any of this, but he got obsessed, and now he's got to do this until somebody clocks onto him. And I don't know, it was one of those films where I first watched it and I thought like this is a cool slasher, it's cool, and then this bit happened and I just loved it. And I think because
it's so weird,
it's so weird and so wacky, and I think because of that. I think a lot of people might watch this film and be like, well, that's shit. It's like, there's barely any signposting for this. Yeah. Apart from the police not listening to it and these weird logs. It's not like there's any, you see the creatures or anything. It's just like, we're in this underground station, get away from the meat. And you're like, what the fuck? So I thought I'd get my weird one out of the way, you know? But definitely watch it if you haven't.
I actually now need to know what reptilian creatures coming out to look like. Well, I'm prepared now for that.
Yeah, sorry to ruin it for you.
It's fine. You got a reaction out of me just from being like, "What the fuck?" Like,
there you go.
That's where we're going with this.
Yeah, just going out there, you know.
So my second one, I'm actually going to share because obviously this is best twists in horror.
Yeah,
and I've actually chosen a TV show for my second one. I've gone away from horror films and I've gone for a TV twist instead. Because the often forgotten about on these kind of films are the TV shows, and some of them have had fantastic, amazing twists in them, and there's a whole bunch of different horror shows that I could link out to, and there's a whole bunch of twists that I could do. But I think I'm going to go for one that's pretty much, when you think of horror TV, I think right now it's probably the most well thought of, and also the one that's been going on for long. Maybe too long for some people's perspective. I'm going to go with American Horror Story.
Gee, I'm going
to go all of the first season.
I thought you'd go the first season. Yeah.
Because to be honest, out of all of them, Murder House is the most consistent of all of the seasons. It's the strongest. They started out the strongest. Ever since then, not that they haven't had great... I haven't watched the last couple. I think around 1984 is the last one
I watched that.
Or maybe... I can't remember what came after it, actually. I don't know. I haven't watched the one about aliens, vampires, where it's half and half of a season or whatever. Yeah. I lost it a little bit. There's one thing with American Horror Story for me that's always... is that there are great ideas. Season plays out amazingly. They come out with some amazing characters, some great actors. They always feel like they've not planned out the ending, and the ending always feels rushed and kind of like they didn't really think about it in a lot of the seasons. I always feel like it comes to an end when it's like, it seems like a left field turn, or it feels like you didn't think that through, did you? You didn't know where to go with this. You had a great concept, but you didn't know where to go with this in the end. So often in American Horror Story, sometimes when they try to pull off a final twist at the end, I always find it doesn't always work that well. Yeah. Like they kind of fail at the end when they've sometimes built amazing seasons of something like... like quite a lot of them. I won't go through and ruin all of the seasons for everyone. But the first one, which is now, 13, 14 years old, so...
It is up for...
that one's definitely up for grabs. So, Murder House. Now, there are actually several great twists in this first season, and this first season works out amazingly as like a kind of a supernatural, but it also has elements of a slasher. It has... it's got a lot of elements in it mixed in together, which I think is why it kind of works so well for like horror fans, why people were drawn in so quickly to it. And not only that, the fact that it's got a great cast in it.
Yeah, really strong, man.
Yeah, Sarah Paulson and Dylan... I'm going to say McDermott, but I'm not sure if that's the right one.
Dermot O'Leary.
And why am I blanking? It's not Vera Farmiga. It's her sister or her daughter or her sister, I think. Her sister. And I'm blanking on her first name.
I can't.
She's a Farmiga.
A Farmiga.
They're a bit of a horror between American Horror Story and say like The Conjuring. They've made themselves a little bit of a horror dynasty there. But yeah, so American Horror Story, it plays out standard, not hugely different here from the others in some ways, that they are a family living moved into a new house, and they start to notice a lot of creepy shit going on. Like people that are in full-on spandex, the gimp that goes around. We'll try to work out who the gimp is, kind of strange supernatural things. There's some weird obsession with their family and the fact that the wife is pregnant. Connie Nielsen, there you go, another great actress, who is pregnant, and there seems to be an odd kind of obsession with that, with the neighbour next door. And it plays out a lot across the season, and it flips back and forth between history. You have one great part of the show when it goes back to a guy who's basically performing like abortions and stuff in the cellar, which is a really like creepy kind of part of it, and really kind of disgusting that you find out that he's doing that, but he's also kind of twisted at the same time, and it's really like fucked up in that way. But as much as it is, you get to grow, and the nice thing about it being a TV series is you get a long time to kind of grow with these characters and get to learn, and you get to really root for certain characters and root for certain. So you've got a character who I don't think anyone would ever expect to root for is the person in charge, is Tate. Yeah. Evan Peters, again, fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Quite an underrated actor, I find, quite often. And he's got the Tate one, and this isn't my twist, but this is a great twist, is the one that he's the school massacre shooting. Yeah. And he also turns out to be the gimp at the end. Yeah. The whole school massacre part is really... It's a really weird one that I don't know why, but you're always so interested in that kind of thing. Just when they play out, it's horrific and horrible, and you're like, this is literally the worst thing, and it does make you like, holy shit, this stuff still goes on. Like all of these that have happened, and they're still like, we're good with guns, and you're just like, holy shit, man.
It's a daunting thing, isn't it?
It is.
Like you said, it doesn't happen over here. But it's a strange...
No, we've had like one case in history of like that kind of thing happening in arts.
But it's a strange, it's a strange like thing, and even seeing it played out on TV, because like I think maybe for us, like schools are such a place of innocence. Yeah, and like it
just is when you see that reaction, and I think any scene, any show that tries to do it, and obviously it's a rocky ground and it's a hard one to do, because there's only so much that they want to show, because especially a lot of these quite often are American, because yes, some British TV shows have done this where they've done a school shooting, but again, it's more they're taking the American idea and they're putting it into a show, because we don't have this kind of thing. Rarely does this thing ever kind of happen in our country, but over there, so when Americans are, obviously they have to be wary of it, because sadly it looks like just about every month one's happening. So they have to be wary all of the time of any kind of shooting that's going on, and they have to be wary of what they show. And obviously in American Horror Story in this first season, they don't really show it too much. They don't really show a huge amount of it, but they do show the terror around it, of people hiding, people locking away, people being like dragged away, or people being killed off screen. But it doesn't change how effective it is, in that way. So, it's very odd that then you've got a character like Tate, who is this gimp wearing guy. You find out it's him, but you also find out, and that's a twist as well. Obviously, these are all twists. There are loads of twists. But you have his character be this, but then you have his love for Violet, the daughter, and it's odd that you both start to kind of come round to his character. You actually start to like his character as someone who, I don't know, who I guess they go down to the deeper part of it, is this really messed up kid, and the fact that he's had so much time to reflect on it because he's been stuck in this house for so long, as all of these people are stuck in this house and appear at certain times and different times, and it's just somewhere you can't escape and things like that. So it does get towards the end when you start to be thinking of the whole family. Why the fuck are you still here? There are lots of things that drag them back in and draw them in and keeping them around and kind of twisting them, and they don't realise that a lot of people who they're talking to aren't actually real or there. But the best and the most haunting twist in the whole season, and yes, big spoiler for that one, but is the fact that Violet, the daughter's been dead for pretty much half the season.
Oh, that was horrendous.
And the way it plays out is horrific. And the fact that she's taking pills, and you have Evan Peters Tate who's there, who's holding her and trying to be the one to save her and things like that and protect her, and you actually think that she was saved. Well, and
because it's almost it's almost that hook of the unreliable narrator, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought, and I'm sure whilst watching it, I distinctly remember her throwing up those pills.
Yeah.
And then he was trying. I remember looking back on it, he was trying to keep her out of the air vent for ages.
All those parts that So if you revisit it, it's actually even more really effective, because you're holy shit, it's there. But you don't realise how long she's actually been gone, because you think she came through that, and that's also a turning point for Tate's character, because you realise that when that happens to her with the overdose, you notice that he's you think he's part of why he saved her and he's trying to protect her, and yes, he gets a little bit too over the top with that, but because he knows, but that's because he was trying to protect her from the truth and protect all of them. And obviously as the family starts to erode and the family start to die basically, but at the same time it's also a case of when we finally think that they're actually going to be able to get out of here, it's that gut punch of of all of them, the most innocent is Violet. So you're literally there okay, well, at least some of them are going to get, get out of this, not going to be stuck here forever, or at least Violet can get out of this. And it's oh shit, you were gone way before any of them, and your parents didn't even realise, kind of thing. And it just is, and then seeing her dead body that's already rotting inside of and it's just another hit upon a hit, because again, you've had the whole season to get used to it. This is a twist that would work in a film effectively, but not as effectively as because you've gone on this whole thing. The fact that a lot of people just for weeks, you're watching it for weeks. It's been months, and you've had months, and people could rewatch the episodes, and they've been able to go back through it. And it is just one of those twists that people were I didn't fucking get it.
Yeah.
And it's not like a film when you watch it once and it's revealed to you that you had so long to notice the signs, and you still didn't notice it. And every episode had little after she died. Every episode had little hints, but it still was just and again, I think it's that kind of. The actress herself, it's kind of that kind of protection that an audience puts on a character sometimes, that you think she's so protected and you're so you want her to be safe, you don't look at some of the harmful things that's actually around, or the harmful people that she's been around.
Yeah.
And Tate is one of those harmful people, but at the same, and even her parents at times are the harmful people. But yeah, it is just one of those all-encompassing gut punch of a twist in the film, in the TV series. So yeah, I felt like, even though I had lots of them, I was like, I want to go with that one.
It's a great one, and I think, my kind of touching on American Horror Story, I think the first season was incredible. I think it was genuinely great storytelling. It was great visually. I think every season looks great. It's just a shame because it seems that like each one has gone on. It gets more away from like the horror and the weird stuff. Like I remember, or it keeps the weird stuff, but it's never quite as good. Like
it's got very drawn in. I gotta be honest, it's got very drawn in by social, political kind of stuff. Sometimes it feels a little bit like I get they're trying to find a horror side of it, but sometimes it feels like the horror disappears and it's too much about making a point about something, or making we're trying to say about this, which can work really well. But some of the seasons have gone too far one way, away from almost feeling like they're not even a horror anymore.
Yeah, like I remember, I recently watched Hotel and 1984 because, those were two that sounded cool. Like Lady Gaga's in one, and 1984 sounds like it's right up my street. And both of them started off pretty interesting and pretty this is kind of horror based, there's some little scares, or there's some weird stuff, and then by the end of it, by the last 2 or 3 episodes, it was just really the horror had gone, and it was more just about it was almost like telling a happy story. I remember Hotel had an ending that, if I remember it correctly, that was everything's fine. Everything's alright, mate. Yeah, don't worry about it. There's no horror. There's no weird things. And the same with 1984. It was just we're dead. We're gonna live in this. We've got to live continuously going around this. Summer camp forever. We've all agreed that we'll keep Richard Ramirez here. We'll just kill him when he reanimates. And it was really weird. There was no horror. It was
really weird. That one, especially the hotel one, I felt died pretty fast around the midpoint of the season. It started to just. I don't know. It's first that idea of a hotel where people start, classic Shining things like that, and it has some amazing bits when they do have that's one of the earlier influences of them bringing in actual real life killers when they have the whole round the table kind of thing. That stuff's all really cool. The what I'd probably say, what is it? The Drilladildo or whatever it was, kind of death and early, at the start of the season. But yeah, by the end of it, you'll start. Okay, so this is again somewhere you can't quite escape, but also what's Lady Gaga's deal and things like that. And it just didn't feel like a complete kind of idea. And 1984 started out great as a freaking Friday the 13th style kind of slasher, kind of not quite that, but camp, and it is that for quite a few episodes of that kind of debt, and then you're like, oh wait, these characters are here again, and then it turns out to be more of a supernatural thing, which was fine. For me, honestly, the part is when it went away from the camp, started to go to the Richard Ramirez part, and it's, to be honest, it's one of those times when I start to be like, there's a way that you should use real life killers, and the way they've used them before, inspired by the Freak Show one has the inspired kind of the clown killer. Yeah. And obviously in Hotel they have around the table where New York based killers were kind of ended at a hotel. But it wasn't distasteful. The Ramirez one I started to felt almost distasteful. It started to feel like fucking Mortal Kombat of killers. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was just if you're going to do it, then I would say you do someone who's inspired by Ramirez, but don't literally say that Ramirez is here and now caught. And now it started to feel in poor taste. To be honest,
really did. Don't go boss Richard Ramirez.
And he didn't feel scary anymore either. The killer no longer, someone who was a real life killer, and somehow they'd managed to take out the mystery of him and then managed to make him not even a scary thing.
Yeah.
You're watching these two guys again, Gillett, I'm going to say McDermott again, from the first season was back as a killer for like 2 episodes, and he's the one that kind of goes up against him. And it just started to be like, this isn't horror. This is what is happening right now. Like, you came up with the idea of this episode where we have to have him, and then we have to keep Ramirez, and why is it specifically Ramirez when we're out in the middle of nowhere and he was a city-based killer?
Yeah.
Why is you could have chosen any number of people, I'm sure, who could have killed someone in a camp style, I'm sure there are lots of country-based killers.
We'll just make
up. You chose someone because you know that they were high profile and it would bring something to the. It's stuff like that again where it started to look more to like the real life killers too much. Instead of just taking inspiration from them, it started to actually bring them in all the time, and it was like, why?
and
like it's kind of disrespectful to like the actual killings.
Of course,
you know what I mean. And yes, I know anytime they do these shows and these horror, a lot of people will say they're disrespectful, but at least sometimes they have a bit of taste to be like, sometimes they won't show the killer doing certain deaths or things like that because it's distasteful to the victims. But this was just like, okay, well, you're not doing it to the actual victims, but you're still showing him being this like bloodthirsty. But it literally started to feel like, are you trying to be like Richard Ramirez is cool?
That's
you were
what
trying
I had.
to make him feel like he's fucking cool.
And I had this, Dharma. I thought Dharma was really well done.
I haven't watched Dharma yet.
I thought it was really well done. I
wanted to.
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was shot really well. It was interesting. It was kind of one of those bits where it was like, what was going on. There was a heartbreaking episode that really paid tribute to one of his victims.
Yeah.
And most of all, I don't think it made Jeffrey Dahmer look cool. He looked like a sad loser. I'm calling you out. He looked like a sad loser.
Come and get
me from the grave. He looked like a sad loser, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I remember thinking with 1984, Richard Ramirez, not only was he a piece of shit, he was ugly as fuck and he had bad, horrid teeth. I know as a British man, calling Richard Ramirez's teeth, there's some irony in there. But he was, he was a horrid looking dude.
Yeah.
And they cast like a decent looking lad as him.
Yeah.
And then they came off as like
they glamorized him.
Yeah. Which
like
felt
they made
very
the
bad
whole
taste.
leather jacket and the little blades. They made it feel like they were trying to be like, you know who was cool? Like Danny in Grease.
Yeah.
So we're going to make Ramirez kind of like a cool kind of like
everybody
greaser.
likes a bad boy.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of vibe.
But like literally was that when you were like, here's a killer versus a killer, and it's like, so you want me to root for a person who kills people either way?
Yeah.
Like, I know the other character was not based on a real one or was inspired, but wasn't actually a real life killer versus a real life killer.
Yeah.
But it was just like, who the fuck thought this was a good idea?
I know.
Like this is like, I'm someone who loves horror films, and this is in poor taste.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but no, like that's what I mean. It's had a lot of good, and a lot of the early seasons are actually very strong, and some of them I do really like. And they even revisited Murder House for a season where they brought together the Coven with the Murder House to make a kind of mixture, which again was a really kind of like they built into the supernatural ideas and how the world built, and they built that season actually wasn't that bad. It was really good until they got to an ending when it was basically witches versus Damien, who was the baby from Murder House. And it was shit. It was some of the worst, the final episode was so rushed to, that the final episode was just like a 10-minute, we've built up this whole season about how evil he is and how terrible it's going to be. And then it was just like, we're in a house, we're going to fight you. Holy shit, that person's dead. Right, you're dead too. I was like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, this is terrible. Like, this has, again, it completely killed any of the horror of what made either season great.
Yeah.
And they'd kind of ruined, reflectively ruined 2 other parts.
That's just what they do, man.
And to come back to Twist and things like that, and to link before
And that
we
actually
go to
does
yours,
link as well.
because there are horror twists as well that we haven't mentioned at the start that can reflectively kind of ruin films or ruin other ones. Sometimes these films can be like, that was quite a good film, and then suddenly the twist is like, that's a shit film.
Well,
you can totally destroy. M. Night Shyamalan is very good at having both made some of the best and worst. I'm calling out, say, The Happening with Mark Wahlberg, where it's running from what? What are you running from? I'm running from the wind. Like, the wind just goes like, well, you don't understand the fact that that would be everything. That's the fucking air around you.
Yeah.
So that makes no fucking sense. But it has, like, that film is like a partial, like, it's a little bit horror. At the start, it has these dropping the bodies off of buildings, and that was like an awesome scene. It even had like a lawnmower where it goes over a guy. I was like, I'm kind of into this. I like this. And then at the end, it was like an environmental message. The plants are trying to kill you, and it's like, the fuck did you think that was a good idea? And it just is. It reflectively, and even to call out one of his other ones that popped into my head. Did you? We had obviously Unbreakable, Split, and Glass.
Yeah, I saw Unbreakable.
Unbreakable was really good. I really like it. Split, I think, was James McAvoy's performance anyway is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was decent.
It's incredible thing. I think they're both pretty strong films, but Glass as a film completely fucked the whole thing because they ruined it at the end by just the way he did everything is fucking terrible. Have you seen Glass?
I haven't, but
I won't spoil the film just for the sake of doing it, but it reflectively ruins, like, that one's more about Samuel L. Jackson's character, which again, most of the film's pretty good, and then at the end, the way they let it all play out into this three characters against each other, and it's just fucking terrible. Like, it's so bad.
Well, to be honest, I didn't think much of Unbreakable. I watched it. I thought really interesting at first. And then maybe because I was too young, I didn't get, a lot of it went over my head. Maybe that is it. But I watched it. I wasn't particularly impressed with it. Then we went to watch, I think we watched Split together, maybe. Well, I know I watched it.
We did, yeah.
And then I remember, like, the after credits scene was just Bruce Willis from Unbreakable watching it on TV, and I was like, what?
It's a universe now.
Yeah, I was like, so now it's a universe. And then when they announced Glass, I was like, I don't see the appeal to this at all.
I don't think too many people did, because it didn't actually do as well as they expected it to either.
Of course,
it's because like people liked Split and they liked Unbreakable separately as different things, but they didn't see the point to make this kind of meta superhero universe-y kind of superheroes, but people that don't act like they're superheroes and don't want to be known as them, and you bring them together and what happens, it just it didn't work, and like many of his twists didn't work. But there was not just M. Night. No, we're not just calling you out. We could probably, in fact we probably will, I'll put it on an episode list at some point. We could probably do the twist of M. Night Shyamalan just as an episode itself. But calling you out just because you're both you're the most inconsistent, and your whole career is basically twists.
It is, man.
Let's go to Robbie and let you get on with your
that works. Second, yeah. That does work, though, because this was what I felt was a really good twist that was then undone by the sequel. And this is The Boy. So
yes, The Boy.
It was a film that I didn't watch it at the cinema. I just randomly stumbled on it on Netflix a couple of years after it was released. And basically it's about a woman called Greta who leaves America because she's hired to be a nanny by this posh couple whilst they're on holiday. So she emigrates over to the countryside in England, and she's basically told that she has to look after a porcelain doll called Brahms. And then, she doesn't really take it seriously. She's in this massive house with this, looking after a fucking doll. She's got these really weird rules to follow, like you have to read him a book in a child's voice. You have to play loud music. You have to, when you make food, you have to make a plate for Brahm and then get rid of it in this special bin. And it's kind of like this. It's just a. She's like, this is fucking. Yeah. I'm clearly looking after two nitwits. Like I'll just take it for the ride. We find out that the actual real Brahms died 20 years ago in a house fire. He was 8 years old, and that since then, this is how the two parents are dealing with it. Basically, the film kind of then plays out as if it's like a paranormal film. So you hear a child crying in the night. You hear the doll moving on its own. She'll go into a room and then the doll will be on a different thing.
Yeah.
And it the doll even calls her and talks to her and asks her to follow the rules, and she'll be nice. And it plays out like a paranormal film. you're thinking this is just a paranormal film.
Just like the doll kind of like
The
creepy ghost or not Chucky, but you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. Like what are they doing, or Annabelle, any of those kind of things. Yeah,
it's a creepy doll, and then something's got to happen. She's got to want to leave, and the doll's not going to let her. That kind of thing. And it even gets to the point where we see like the parents writing a letter to Brahms and then like killing themselves. You know, they put like rocks in their pockets and stuff and go into a river. And then effectively Greta has like an abusive ex-partner who follows her all the way from America. He turns up and they get into a confrontation, and she's saying, I'm not going to go to America, like I have to stay here and look after Brahms and stuff. He goes Rago and smashes Brahms.
Yeah.
And the whole house starts shaking, you hear all these loud noises, and you're thinking like, this is going to be like the big supernatural reveal. And then all of a sudden, this man bursts through a mirror and kills the American guy, and then you find out that the real Brahms has actually been living in the house inside the walls all of this time, and it's just this fun twist that I did not see coming. And then it plays out that like he wants her to stay there, he's not going to let her leave. The housekeeper comes and like tries to rescue her, and they end up killing Brahms. So it has this really cool twist, and I think when you watch it back a second time, everything makes sense. Like, well, you have to read loud because he's in the wall so he can hear. Like, she puts the food in the bin, and then when she goes and checks, the bin's empty. And then that's how the doll moves around, because he's in there doing everything. So I kind of feel like it plays out really cool, especially on like a second watch. But then the problem is, it then followed up with a sequel.
I will say, I haven't actually seen this film, but I had heard the twist before. And I already wasn't really interested. I wasn't really interested by the film at all. None of this promotional stuff made me interested at all by the film. But the twist. However, the twist that I heard, it must have been described really shitly, because the twist when I heard it made it sound like there was a person living in the doll.
No.
And so when they broke it, it was the man it was underneath. So this makes a lot more fucking sense now. Because I was like, how the fuck... what kind of size of man are you saying is in there? That there's someone living inside. So I was thinking, so they tried to do like a doll version of Orphan.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised someone hasn't tried that kind of... You think it's alive because actually it is alive hiding underneath there, but I was like, that still doesn't make a lot of sense. This makes a lot more sense now. How does the sequel fuck that up?
Well, the good thing about Brahms as well, just so you get an idea of what he looks like, is he's kind of like Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween. He's like
a little pale boy,
massive, gang. Like he's not as muscly. He's like quite gangly. Yeah. He's got like long ass hair, and he wears like a porcelain doll mask. And then basically, so
that'll be why the picture that went with the spoiler was a person with a porcelain mask that was slightly broken. So I was like, is that just a picture of when he's winning the little boy? He's in the little. I was like, how fucking big is this doll?
Well, basically, you find out that like Brahms was a nutter, and he killed a girl when he was young, bashed her head in with a rock, and then when they came to get him, the police came to get him, they found that the house was on fire. So the parents kind of did this so Brahms wouldn't go to prison.
Yeah.
And then the idea was that they couldn't live with it anymore. They got this woman in who obviously came from America, so she didn't have any family or anything like that around. And then she would stay with Brahms forever, and Brahms would just keep her there. So it plays out quite well.
She just thinks she's looking after a doll.
She thinks she's looking after a doll. And the whole
that's already a fucking
well, that's why the first half she's like not following any of the rules.
Yeah,
she's just like I'm getting paid like $1,000 a week to just look after a doll. Yeah. So she completely neglects it, and then something happens. I can't remember what it is that makes her do it, but it all plays out very like supernatural.
Yeah.
Like if you follow the rules, like you won't get hurt, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it plays out supernatural. Then you get this twist, which I didn't see coming. I thought was really good, and then on second watches, it kind of clicks a lot more. And then in the sequel, which I'm saying this right. I was wasn't super excited for a sequel, but I was so interested in how they'd pull it off because I was a fan of the first one.
Yeah.
That I went to the cinema on my own to watch it because they were only showing it for like 2 days in Gloucester. So I watched it, and basically they just undo everything. They're like, no, the doll actually was haunted. It's basically, it's like, nah, doll was haunted. The Brahms was driven nuts by the doll, and it's like, oh, so now it's just like you've just basically reverted the whole thing.
Everything that came before it.
You had this nice little fun twist, and you've basically just gone, nah. You know that twist that not many people saw coming, propped up like an average film. Like, nah, don't worry about that, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking. Yeah, that does sound ridiculous.
You know? Yeah, it was it was like, I don't know. You know, when you watch a film and they just bring a character back randomly, they just undo something.
I was thinking in my head. I was just checking because I was thinking in my head. I thought for some reason The Boy 2 was actually quite well reviewed, but no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I don't think the first one was that well reviewed.
No, but it was better reviewed than the second one. Yeah. The second one's been like totally.
I think I hold it in like such good stead because I just watched it thinking it's only like an hour and a half. It's going to be like an average paranormal film. I just need someone to kill the time, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised with the twist. Before we do our last one, should we go over to the social media lounge?
Yeah,
I've got a couple. So the ones that I've got at the moment are, we've got our boy Simon from So I Married a Horror Fan. They've just celebrated 10,000 plays, so all our love. They said, not sure how much of a twist it is, but the ending of Final Destination 5, where they reveal it's a prequel, is really good.
Yeah,
I had that on my list because I think it's a great twist, man. You know,
I think it is. You don't think about it, and they have done enough to look back at it and go, like we mentioned in our episode, which is I always feel is like one of our. I don't know, our famously not quite great episodes.
Yeah.
Because sadly we were on burnout at Final Destination, and also we were doing it in I think that was one of our early ones when we were transitioning in how to do our podcast, like from after we'd left Dan.
Yeah.
And we were working out how to do it. And we were doing it on one that had a timer, and it got cut short. So that episode doesn't actually have a proper ending.
Oh shit!
No, we had to like wrap it up in like 2 minutes when we were only partially through the film. So we did talk about it, I think, a little bit, but we literally had to like sum it up so quickly that it's almost one that has to be revisited one day.
Yeah.
But the fact that they put in little stuff from. You don't look until the second time and you realise, holy shit, they're using like fucking a Motorola Razr or something. You know what I mean?
But the guy,
or even earlier than that, actually.
It's like a big blocky mobile.
That's what, and you just don't think about it when you were watching it in the film. It was one that was like, oh shit. And it was also a big return to form for the franchise.
Yeah, definitely, man. Every rom-com pod said Us, which had a good twist. Suspiria 2018.
I thought you were saying every rom-com has a good horror twist.
No, yeah, every rom-com's got a great twist. Suspiria 2018, which I haven't watched, but we're going to be covering the original Suspiria in the next couple of weeks.
It's a much longer. The second one, the remake is a much longer film. Like the first one's an hour and 45 minutes. The second one,
over
I read
150
minutes or something like that. It's fucking long.
It's supposed to be a lot different as well, which I've heard.
Yeah, I have it. It was quite a mixed reaction from what I remember hearing from it. Some people really loved it because it does fully go crazy, and some people were like, it doesn't really live up to the original. So I don't know.
Yeah,
we will see when we will look at that one day.
We will. The end of 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Lord Zombie said you got to talk about Sleepaway Camp, or at least Friday the 13th. Both.
I implied to that at the beginning.
You
the
did.
Boy that is not actually a boy is one of the many boys.
Yeah.
All the boys.
All the boys.
Daddy and the boy.
And then the first Friday the 13th, where it's Pamela, that's a classic.
That was going to be an honourable mention kind of thing, where it is a twist, classic twist.
And then Bear had, which I wanted to mention, but I think everybody should go into this film blind, and that's Barbarian. You know,
that's too new that I don't I don't want to spoil that for anyone, so I'm not going to say what the twist is.
Yeah, and that's it. I thought, yeah.
Some of these films you do need to go in blind, and
Barbarian,
for instance, definitely. Like I said, out of the ones that we've done so far, I'd say quite a lot of them, the experience is kind of ruined for you a bit. I do think that The Others is one where if you already knew the twist, then the film's going to feel. It's not that you can't take enjoyment from it, but I do think some films, like The Sixth Sense, they are films that they're still good films in their own right. They just don't play as well as the first time.
Yeah, you
they
need
never
to.
do. Some of them, the twists play out, and you can still rewatch it. You know what I mean? And it still kind of plays as well.
Yeah.
Because it's not such a big hit, like, oh my god, I didn't see it coming. But there are certain ones where it is literally like, once you've seen it, it almost makes you feel like. I feel like there are some people that say that I've never seen The Sixth Sense, or I've never seen, certain horrors that you're like that.
Yeah.
Why not? And they're like, because the twist was ruined for me, so I don't see the. And I kind of get that sometimes because there are films when it's like I have avoided because it's like. I heard what the twist was, so I didn't watch Fight Club for ages because I got it ruined for me. So because I knew what the twist was, I was like, and it's still a great film. You can watch it without knowing the twist. It's still a great film. It's just there are certain ones when it's just like I'm never gonna get that shit.
You'll never get that cultural moment.
You know what I mean? You'll never get that moment where it's just like it's so sad. But at the same time, if you've come on today and you're like, will you ruin The Others for me? Well, that's your fucking fault.
That film that older, I think
it was 2001.
Yeah, that is.
You've had 22
years.
I apologise, but time's up.
Yeah, time's up. But no, I think like a good twist is like, and I'm talking one of those bombshell fucking things, like Sixth Sense. I could see why you wouldn't want to watch the film if you know what it is, because the twist is the fucking bomb being dropped, and that's like a cultural moment, Like I remember when Sixth Sense came out, everybody was like, everybody was talking about I See Dead People, but I think people had reverence for the film that they didn't talk about the ending, because I remember everybody quoting and everybody parodying I See Dead People, but nobody was like,
and that's what at the start when I said about that cultural moment, like there are some like thrillers or horrors that kind of have such a twist that brings people to it no matter what, even if they're people that don't really like horror films and stuff like that. I mean, The Sixth Sense was freaking, because The Sixth Sense was only a small made film. It wasn't a big name. M. Night Shyamalan was not a big name. He got Bruce Willis to star in his film. He got Toni Collette to star in his film. But it was not big name things. Like Bruce Willis, basically, he starred in the film because he got a huge amount of the back end of the profit. So he got a percentage of the profits. That's what makes him one of the for that film he got one of the biggest paydays ever, because he had a huge percentage of the profit, because he was like, I'll star in your film, but I want this much of it. So that's how small the film was. This is a film that probably, if it hadn't have been for such a phenomenon that built around it, it would have been one of those that's like, it would have made a couple of mil and it would have been gone.
Yeah.
But instead it made like 160, 200 mil off of a budget of like, only a couple of mil. Because it was a phenomenon of everyone was like, don't ruin the twist for people.
Yeah.
Don't go in a film. You won't believe what's happened. You won't think. And it's because it is played so well. And there are some films that have just so perfectly, whether it's a horror film like The Sixth Sense, The Others, or whether it's Fight Club or something, or the Usual Suspects, or something, films where you just like, you didn't see it coming, because it takes a masterful. There are people that have tried to do these, and there are many films where they have twists that some people might say are as great, but the problem is the director just couldn't pull off the subtlety to make it work as well. And that is why, he can make as many shit films as he wants, but I'd never say that M. Night Shyamalan's not a good director, because the way he masterfully managed to make everyone not realise that Bruce Willis was shot at the very beginning of the film and dead. You know what I mean? Was just like, and even when you look at the way he was shot, you're like, shit, that really probably I can't believe we didn't think that he probably wouldn't survive that anyway alone. But, and the fact that the kid's literally telling you the whole film,
it's insane.
and you're like, I didn't see it, because, and it is, again, like I said, it takes a great director. It also sometimes takes a great performance from an actor to make you so drawn in by them. And in that case, it's both Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment, that you're both drawn in so much by them, you don't really think about the context of it at the time.
No,
you're so drawn in by what the child is seeing around him, or the fact that Bruce Willis is struggling in his own life and it reflecting into the child, that you don't think about it. And that is it. That was it with like The Others. That's it with so many of these horrors. Is just like the performance draws you in so much that you just don't think about the rest of it, kind of thing. Like you were so drawn in by Vinnie Jones that you didn't realise these people were living.
Vinnie Jones's aura just drew me in so well, you know.
Right, it's my final one.
It is, man. Send us off happy.
So I have actually decided to change my choice midway through this.
Okay.
Only because I started to feel a little bit like all three of my choices, to be honest. I said supernatural. They were all supernatural. The third one, I'll tell you what it was going to be. It was going to be The Orphanage.
I remember you. Yeah, you were a big
fan. But I've actually talked about this one before, and I was flip-flopping as to whether to talk about it. And once I talked about the other two, I felt like I'm just going to repeat myself because it's another haunted house murder. It just felt too samey to me. Yeah. And there was another one on my list that I did almost want to talk about as well. So, and there was a classic one that I've knocked out and decided, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about one that's a little bit more modern and a little bit more that some people might have seen, some people might not have. And it's You're Next.
Yeah, this is a good one, man. I like this one.
Only because this is like a different of like I think the other ones like drew me in for long enough. This was a film I think where to start off with the film I was like watching it, but I wasn't expecting much at all from this film.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They said it's like, it's from the guys that did the Blair Witch Project, which I was like, oh yeah, well that doesn't give me big like wow because I'm not expecting it. So Adam Wingard, who's gone on to quite a few bigger things.
Man's doing fucking
Godzilla's
monster,
now. He's doing all the monster like now. He did Godzilla vs Kong,
King film, absolutely,
and now he's doing the sequel as well.
Absolute
that
King
one.
Film. Yeah, the New Empire or something like that.
Yeah, so that
I
one's
love
coming
that
out
shit,
too.
man.
So yeah, he's gone on to like much bigger things, but this film is kind of what helped start that kind of. He did go on to do one or two that were forgotten. I think Death Wish. It's the adaptation of the anime Death Note. Death Note. He did that one, which was not well received at all, but luckily it's on Netflix.
Did he do The Guest?
Those films. He did do The Guest,
which
as
is
well.
supposed to be awesome.
That helped as well. So he did You're Next and The Guest. Those two films were like good indie, low budget, but made really well kind of films that helped him. It's almost when he's tried to do bigger ones that he's not always been as consistent with Death Note. I think he also was he not a part of the Blair Witch? I think he did the Blair Witch one. I've never watched the. But they did another one, didn't they? Not the second one, the remake one. That's kind of like a remake, reboot, sequel, whatever it is.
It was okay.
I didn't watch that. I didn't watch that one, but I know that wasn't majorly well received. I don't think. I think it was just kind of forgotten about. Because again, the Blair Witch was something that you couldn't recreate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so You're Next. So a family gather together, for their. Yes, right. A family gather together for their kind of kind of reunion, introducing his partner, his fiance to the whole family.
Yeah.
It's a pretty straightforward concept to start with. It's elevated by the way that it's done.
It's a home invasion.
Yeah, it's home invasion. It's suddenly they get surrounded by these people in different kind of animal kind of like masks.
Yeah.
And they're fighting for survival, and they're being killed off, and they have to fight back by you get a little bit of that. Almost always makes me think of just Home Alone straight away when anyone tries to make traps in houses or something like that. So you've got like things set up like the axe that comes into play later that is dropping
awesome,
down, which is our final shot in the film when it splatters You're Next. And it's a really effective home invasion film, mainly focused on the main character.
Yeah.
Who we're following her and her fiance, and you're thinking that they're trying to survive against all of her other family kind of being killed and wiped out as they're one by one. And you're thinking, shit, how are they going to get out of this? And she's thinking that she's just like, because they're a well-off family, that they're being targeted for some reason and there's something they want. And I'm not saying those parts of it kind of completely change the game, but there's something about the deaths that really works well. These films. There's a lot of trapped-based kind of deaths, whether it's their deaths or whether it's the people trying to invade that they're trying to kill. And a lot of it does leave just this lasting impact in the film.
But I always remember Ty West's death in it. at the very start where
Is it? Oh, is it
it's
the
Ty
actor?
West?
Oh, is
yeah.
it? I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's Ty West. But they're all at the dinner table, and like I think they might like an argument breaks out.
Yeah,
and then he goes over to the window. He's like, "There's people outside," and everybody ignores him. And then he's like, "Guys, I think there's somebody outside." And then he just gets shot in the eye.
Yeah.
So good.
Is it a shot or is it an arrow?
It's an arrow.
It's an arrow. I was going to say, I remember. Yeah, I do remember that one. The arrow. Yeah,
He
straight
gets
through.
loosed in the eye.
Fuck, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the deaths is because they come in a lot of them don't come in that kind of standard kind of, you're cornered and then you're just kind of murdered or slashed kind of. A lot of them are like shock deaths, like shit out of nowhere. Like I said, like the final shot of the axe coming down on the officer kind of thing, like the fuck, like that you just weren't expecting. But anyway, I'll get to the twist. The twist is obviously that she's come here all the way with her fiance, and then she picks up the phone.
Yeah.
And it's from the invaders.
Yeah.
And they realise that they're talking to. I'm thinking it's Ezekiel, but I don't know.
I think it is. I'm sure it's Ezekiel.
Yeah. It is. So Z, is it Z and Ezekiel? Is that who I'm thinking of? No, it's Erin. Sorry,
Erin's the main girl. I always remember that.
Yeah. I was just mixing up the name.
Ezekiel.
I thought that sounds so. No, Felix.
Sorry,
I don't know where Ezekiel. I don't know. I think because Felix is weird. I kind of went for the E and the Felix. She picks up the phone and the person's talking to Felix, which makes her realise that her fiance is actually the one who has arranged for this whole fucking thing to happen. And it is just this moment because you followed Erin this whole film, like is like the main girl, whatever you want to call her. It is kind of they've been kind of it's just been them, and he's been kind of playing her off so well, even though at times he seems a little bit like a little bit of a wimp, I guess. Maybe at times he looks like he's trying to hide away. I think, but in the twist, you realise that the whole reason he was trying to draw her into certain places or away from certain things is because he kind of had an idea of how this was all going to play out. Yeah, and she was kind of the one fucking it up by becoming this kind of blasting into action kind of thing. You know what I mean? She was fucking it up for him. So yeah, when she realises the fact that it's him who has been doing it, it's just you see like a whole world just crumble around her. She's come out to this, and he's basically just done it because he wants he wants all of the money basically. And if he kills off all of his family, he gets all of it.
He gets all.
Who would ever believe that? The son, when actually probably most likely
most people would be like, that you did it.
In most cases they probably would be like, well, why did they target you? And then I do feel like there is the slight flaw is that probably nowadays I would probably say the police at some point would come to, this seems just too out of the blue and unusual. You're the only one alive. I feel like you did this, mate. Yeah. And I feel like, but I guess Erin being there is kind of part of it, the fact that they've played up the fact that they're coming for like the first time to be with the family and the meeting, and I guess she's almost his alibi, his backup to be like, well, no, we were here and they just came and
we don't, we haven't spoken to them for
we haven't seen them so long, and this is just like an unusual thing to us to come, and it's just I just thought it was so like
it's awesome,
so cleverly done, and it is another one that kind of tracks across the whole film, and it has been done in other ones where you reveal it was them that was in on the whole, the whole time. Yeah. But it is just one of the better examples where I think because a lot of it's so like underplayed and you think it's just someone doing a kind of cat and mouse kind of thing with a film. You're doing that kind of like survivor, like kick-ass kind of lead woman kind of thing. Like you don't really think about there being much of a twist. Yeah. You just think of it being a film where she's just going to try and make it out or survive or not survive, in your standard way. So it does start to be like, oh shit, that. And I just remember that is a twist that for me kind of elevated the film as well. I was really enjoying it, much more than I expected anyway. But I just thought the twist kind of elevated it because I suddenly clicked into place like all of the signs that were there with him. Oh yeah. Throughout the film.
And not just that, but like there's signs that there's people like that they were already in the house. Like I remember like the first time I watched it, they find like when they turn up to the house, like they're looking around it, they find like bottles, like 2 or 3 bottles of piss. And they're like, well, somebody must have like been squatting here or something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some other stuff where there's like signs that people have been staying there.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
sure
when
there
you
were,
watch
there were
it back,
like driving past certain like cars that they were like looks like just been left at the side of the road, or like you said about the bottles, or I think there was. I swear there's a bit when they see just random like food or scraps of like rubbish, and they're like, "Why is this in the bush?"
Well, yeah, they do.
Why is this just hiding there in a bush? Like it was like, oh, they just think it just might be random. Yeah, squatters hanging around.
I'm sure it's with the piss. I'm sure that
that might all be together in one thing.
Food
now.
stuff.
Yeah, it's all just there. It's just like, what the fuck? Like,
but then it really comes into play because they think that they think that they're just being attacked by outside. And then I remember because one of them gets injured. I think it might be like the mum who gets injured.
Yeah.
They go and take her to a room, and then like when they go and check on her later, she's been killed, and it's like nobody got in the house. It's safe, and then you're like, oh, actually, somebody's been in here
the whole
way
time.
before you.
Yeah,
it's a real good twist, man, and it's ahead of the film.
It is. Yeah. So yes, I went away from that. I went away from. Well, I guess in some ways, I've gone for all the American ones instead of going, and I got rid of the foreign film. I apologise, but it's only because if you listen back, I have talked about that, and I think I might have revealed the twist in a previous episode.
I definitely remember you spoke about it because I was thinking, Seb could have talked
it's
about
very
it.
Similar. The thing that made me change was it's a very similar film to the others in a lot of ways. There's a very similar twist.
Yeah.
There is more to it, and it's not exactly the same, but yeah, it's a very similar. And I'm not going to reveal the twist now because I didn't talk about it. You can go and find the film yourself, but it's a great film. Go and see The Orphanages.
Yeah, it's a hell of a film.
Guillermo del Toro and Jay Bayona. It's great.
Yeah. Well, my final one. This is the iconic one. This is a classic. This is a big hitter, and I was lucky enough that I avoided finding out the spoiler, despite the fact that the film came out in 1973, and its twist is iconic. I think I can't remember how I ended up, but I ended up talking to somebody who was much older than me about this film. I don't know if it was like a family member or somebody, but they told me about this film, and they were like, "Do you know the twist?" And I was like, "No," and they were like, "Well, watch it before you find out the twist, because once you find, it's one of those ones where once you find out the twist." Yeah. You kind of have like.
I'm assuming I would have seen this film. I hope I have.
I'll say two words. I'll give you a hint with the actor, but I don't think it's not the film that you're thinking of. The actor is Charlton Heston, but it's not going to be. Okay. It's not going to be what you're not. It's not Planet of the Apes. But that is a hell of a twist. Soylent Green.
Okay. Yeah.
Soylent Green, man.
Yeah.
I remember watching this, and I think it was back in the day of like LimeWire or something like that. I downloaded it.
This is obviously it's a classic book, isn't it?
It's based on a book, and it was based on a short story or something. But it's weird watching it because like it's 1973. In a way, it's quite ahead of its time because it's very like dystopian. It's set in 2022. I didn't actually realise this. So this took place last year, and funnily enough, it's about global overpopulation, which we're kind of dealing with at the moment.
Yeah.
The long-term effects of the greenhouse effect, which we're kind of dealing with, and global warming at the moment, food shortages, which we're dealing with at the moment, and it's effectively, like food is no longer available anymore, unless you're like part of the elite. You're not going to be getting, fresh food or stuff like that. So instead, people eat these weird wafers called Soylent Blue and Soylent Red. But then they're going kind of quite scarce.
Yeah.
And basically this new product comes out called Soylent Green, and a board member is killed. The Charlton Heston suspects that it's like an assassination, and he effectively goes on this journey of tracking down like what's going on. Like he went to go and make a confession, and it's all kind of I think it's it's very light on the horror. I'd say it's more sci-fi horror,
thriller kind of
thriller,
thriller. But as we've said before, like horrors and thrillers are quite hard. I find because of the suspense level in quite a lot of them. Sometimes you might not say it's a full-on horror, but it could still be a thriller that has many horror aspects.
Yeah.
So it still counts to me.
Yeah, I'd say it. And effectively, like, it's one of the films where you find out the twist, and I noticed this, like, watching a lot of 70s and 80s films you find that they end very abruptly.
After like a twist or something like
after
that, or
a
after
twist,
like a death, or after the killer's been killed, it's like
end. like recently I know you watched it, I watched it, and we're going to do an episode about it. Suspiria. You know, you have this big ending, and then it's just like, play the music, play me out, boys.
It is quite a common thing for like 70s, especially like 70s horror or even 70s sci-fi. I think there's like, what is it, Logan's Run or something, like that, where it has this like big like twist ending when you like remove and realise that one of them was a robot or whatever all along, and it's just like go off into the distance. That's it. Like, they liked ending it on that like horror, the horror dread moment of like, oh my god, that's it, cliffhanger. But not a cliffhanger, because we're not coming back.
we're never touching this again.
We just end people on the oh my god. Whereas now we would tend to have the oh my god and then the aftermath of
some resolution.
A resolution, or at least like see how bad it is afterwards or whatever. Like, how did the world turn out? But now it's just like, no. And this film does kind of have that, where basically Charlton Heston finds out that somebody discovers that apparently Soylent Green is made with plankton, and they go to some like oceanographers or something like that, and they're like, well, the oceans are like are shriveling away, like there's barely anything left. This plankton that they used to make it doesn't exist anymore. This makes somebody clock what Soylent Green is. He then is like, you know what, I can't be dealing with this, basically. Very casually then goes to a euthanasia clinic and kills himself. And then Charlton Heston then kind of follows him there and basically breaks into the Soylent Green factory, where he sees that all of the bodies from the euthanasia clinic are going to the factory. And it kind of has this shocking ending where riots have broken out about Soylent Green. Everybody needs it because it's so damn good, and you know, there's like shots of people eating it and taking it in like the box, and it's Charlton Heston being dragged away screaming the iconic line, "Soylent Green is people, it's people," and then it just zooms out and it ends. And I remember watching it thinking like, what the fuck? It was all of those things where it's like, it's a very harrowing ending. Like the film, I think if you know the twist, there isn't any signposting really. So watching the film back and being like, if you already, like we said earlier, if you already know what the twist is, watching it back might not be as interesting. I mean, because I already knew that was I already knew Soylent Green as people. I'd heard it in so many. I think it's.
I mean, it was.
I think the Simpsons had.
Simpsons probably did it. Simpsons do everything, and it was. It was in everything. But I somehow avoided it.
Yeah, The Simpsons has not only does it have an episode that's basically about that with the kids in the school, but it also has it has a scene in one of them where like Homer walks in with a box that says Soylent Green now with more girls.
Oh, really?
And it just has like people like stuffed into the front of the
That's
thing.
So good. Yeah, but it's just such like a iconic twist. It's harrowing.
It is a classic of that dystopian era when there was so many in the what is it, from about the 50s to the 60s, there were so many books about about dystopian, whether it's Handmaid's Tale, 1984, Soylent, all of those like novels and stuff. They were in a very kind of, oh my god, industrial revolution kind of post, this is the end of the world, like it's more about making than it is about actually, or it's becoming more about business than it is about actually people and things like that.
And
we've got so little money for the lower, whereas the upper class take everything.
Wealth divide. And then, and there was a Twilight, I think it was a Twilight Zone, or there was another show I watched which was basically had a segment called To Serve Man. And it's based on a short story as well, where basically aliens come down and make contact with Earth. And they're basically saying like, well, you know, we have like a paradise, you know, come with us. We have like this, you know, like we've got this like book, and somebody is able to decipher that. It says to serve man, and you know, they're like, oh wow, we get to go to this paradise and we get to be like treated like gods, you know. So loads of people sign up to it, and loads of people are on the spaceship going. And then there's one guy who like deciphers the whole thing and realizes that it's a recipe book and that they'll actually get eaten. And there seems to be like in a lot of like you said, in 50s, 60s sci-fi, it's all about like people being eaten.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's done all the it's done obviously a lot now. Most shows you find that have a kind of dystopian kind of part to it, there'll be some reference to the fact that people are eating people.
Yeah.
You know, it's a consistent kind of thing, even up to The Last of Us, the you know, TV show, and the
Walking
game
Dead, I remember.
had so much about, like, you know, there's always a cannibal kind of try that, like,
Yeah,
the reason we're surviving is because we're eating those
stranded
people. Yeah. It's the only way we're getting by, which, you know, I guess you can see where humanity could go that way, sadly.
Yeah.
We hope we're not part of that. So
No.
maybe 2022. Maybe if you take away like leap years, we've got like 5 years.
Maybe
until
we've got
Soylent
5
Green.
years. Yeah. I wonder, do you reckon Soylent Green would be nice? I reckon
Well, in the film they were so like,
they were loving it.
yeah, I was going to say that's consumerism, but at the same time, I mean, it's a sad thing for humanity that I feel like if someone advertised something and basically went, there's humans in it, but they made a really good like advert or something where like people are like, it's the most delicious thing you've ever. I'm pretty sure that I feel like there's a good fair amount of people that go, well, I'll just try it.
Yeah,
it's like people that go to like China and be like, they have their dog at home and then they go to China and they're like, would you? Or they've got their cat at home and like go to certain areas of like Asia and then they're like, I mean, I'll just give it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll have a little bit. It'd be rude not to. Yeah.
We do that with a lot. So I can't really imagine. I do imagine in that kind of store where they go, you want to try people? Yeah. I'll try anything once, mate.
Funny you mention that, because I did read that there was a company that allowed you to grow steak using your own skin cells. So you could eat your own flesh that you cultivate. Which is, you know, not far off Soylent Green.
Yeah, I mean, and again, and we always seem to come back around to Always Sunny. When Dee and Charlie just, when they think they've eaten man, and they're man, and they're literally going like ravenous, like eating, like
Yeah.
It just eating the crow instead.
Well, I mean, that's our twists, I guess. You know,
it is, yeah. So yeah, there are so many great kind of horror twists out there that we could have chosen from, and I'm sure many people thinking you've forgotten a lot of some of the great kind of twists or things like that. Obviously, we've mentioned The Sixth Sense. It was mentioned in social media, Friday the 13th with Mrs. Voorhees. It said when you think it's Jason the whole time. The Wicker Man.
Yeah, the Wicker Man's a classic.
That he's been brought there for that reason, to be sacrificed.
And that they were some people were trying to save him. Yeah. You know, that's
all of that kind of comes out, which is, you know, that's really like an interesting one. Saw
was a classic.
Where the killer's in the room the whole time.
Yeah.
You know?
Seven.
Yeah, Seven, absolutely. Heads in the Box.
Was it the Box?
Night of the Living Dead.
That's a classic.
You know, it's not a huge twist, but more of like that kind of shock twist that the person who followed the whole time is at the end.
It's just gone.
One that I talked about before, so I didn't put on the list because I have talked about this one before, is The Mist.
Yeah, a classic.
Again, it's not so much of like a huge twist, it's more of a twist in terms of a shock twist.
Yeah.
As you didn't expect that. And more the twist is the fact that then the damn army drives right by it straight after. It's like, fuck you.
Damn.
That is one of those proper like gut punch endings. So it's just so. And yeah, I'm sure there's so many. As I said, any M. Night Shyamalan film is either great or not great of a twist, and many other ones that have made some fantastic films like that. But yeah, there's such a large array out there. We could probably talk about several more, like listing them off and off and off. Because as I said, pretty much a lot of films, to be fair, have some kind of a twist. It's a standard part of any story writing, is that you should come up with something that kind of defies the expectation. So there are so many twists in pretty much every horror we could talk about, whether we're talking about Scream or Halloween, or we're talking about anything from any kind of even Dawn of the Dead or any. They've all got something that's like, oh, actually, I didn't expect that to happen. They're all out there. There's a million of them. I think we've gone for some of the ones that are a bit more either unexpected or you just really weren't like.
Yeah.
And I think they are sometimes the bigger hitter ones when you're just like, either I did not expect them to be the ghosts, I didn't expect them to be a boy, I didn't expect them to be dead, I didn't expect them to be lizards.
The lizard boys. Yeah, we went for a few more personal ones.
Yes, the lizards are very personal for
Yes,
Robin.
it is.
But now I'm very interested to watch that film, probably more than anything you said on the list. I'm like, lizards on the train.
Lizards on the train. Lizards on a train, the follow-up to Snakes on the Train.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many out there, so make sure you hit us up with any of the ones that you want to tell us all about, and I will send over to Robbie because I'm not going to steal his job.
Yes. Yeah, but come and let us know your thoughts and your favourite twists. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at CMTH Podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a lovely review. We're also close to celebrating our 100th episode and we're looking for film suggestions. So if there's any film that you particularly want us to take a look at, let us know on our social media and we'll consider some. See you soon. Bye bye.